Hello.
Hey, what's up, everyone? This is David Staub with the Maegical Stories of Healing and Spiritual Gifts podcast. I am here with my lovely wife, Miss Megan.
Hey, everyone.
And we are super excited today. I'm incredibly excited to talk to Mr. Thomas. Is it a Suski or Suski?
It's Suski.
Suski. Really excited to talk to him today. There's so much alignment with kind of what our path is going and where it looks like his path is going too. So really excited to bring everyone just the awesomeness that's Thomas here. To kind of give you all an intro, Thomas has been on an amazing journey, to say the least. He calls himself the Mind Guy and is a coach of the unconscious mind. In hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming, and he's launching a podcast of his own called the Mind Guy Podcast in January, and it's all about the mind and the metaphysical. This is the part that blows my mind and intrigued me and Megan the most. He has done 26 ceremonies of ayahuasca. 26 and is a big believer in plant medicine, which I can't put into words how much we are too. From experience and just the more we learn about it. He's hosting an ayahuasca ceremony in Colombia in March of next year, which is the first of many more to come. And we'll get more into that a little bit later and details on that. His mission and his purpose is to teach people about the healing power of the mind. And it's just awesome. I mean, I was so excited. I know we connected, Tom. Is it Tom or Thomas?
Thomas.
Cool. Thomas, yeah, I know we connected on Facebook there through the healing group, and it sounded intriguing, but the more I looked you up, I looked at your site, I learned more about you. Just an incredible story. So I appreciate you making the time to jump on here and chat with us a little bit. But yeah, the thing that gets 26 ceremonies, that blows my mind, because Megan and I have done 2 that one weekend, and it was so intense.
Not unicorn and rainbows. Let's put it that way.
And it was so intense. There was so many messages and so much eye-opening, enlightening, just experiences overall, and so much healing in just those 2. I mean, it blows my mind that you've been through 26. So I'm really excited to talk to you and and go through these questions with you. But to start out, totally curious, before we get into the ceremonies and your site and all what you're doing, how'd you grow up? Can you give us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Western Massachusetts in a city called Chicopee, but it's right next to Springfield, which is about 200,000 people. I grew up with pretty much divorced parents. I grew up with a mother who has bipolar, and it was kind of a difficult time living with someone who would kind of change their identity from time to time because the highs and lows of being bipolar. So it was kind of intense, and I was always a really shy kid. I went to a Catholic school, so I was raised Catholic. Went to a public high school, and kind of what happened was I kind of broke out of my shell my junior and senior year from that shyness, and I really stumbled upon success, and I guess you could say that they were kind of my glory years in some ways. Just an athlete, good student, ended up becoming pretty popular, and then from there I went to college up in Amherst, which was about 30 minutes north at University of Massachusetts, Amherst. And then I ended up going through this wild journey of highs and lows. It took me 8.5 years to get through. I had to take a little break. I went to rehab when I was 23 to get sober. Wow. And then, my entire 20s were pretty much a train wreck until, the age of 28, I hit rock bottom. So, I don't know how far you want me to go, but that's kind of the summary of where I came from.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Wow. One question that jumps out to me before this, so you said you grew up Catholic. That kind of blows my mind considering what you're doing now. I feel like that's kind of the polar opposite end of the spectrum of what you're doing now. And I kind of resonate with that. I grew up very, very, very in a conservative family, and very much like thinking marijuana was the devil. Was kind of what was preached to me growing up. And ironically, I kind of, my 20s, and 28 was my bottom too. That's really crazy on a side note. But so you grew up, so I guess it sounds like you grew up more conservative. How is it that you learned about the psychedelic? Like, how did you become open to it? Like, how did that transition happen?
So when I hit bottom, I really came to a crossroads. And here's the interesting thing that happened. I ended up searching for something to really keep me here, because I really had no hope. I really had no future to live into. And what kind of saved me was I went to a psychic that my buddy Sean, him and his family would go to, and I was like completely not in that world at all. And I was that desperate, and I ended up going. It was outside of New York City, over in Long Island, and in those 30 minutes everything shifted. This person I've never met before said things specific to me, like there's no possible way that he could have gotten this from Sean or anybody else. Yep. And it just blew my mind. I was like, this guy knows me and has information on me that is beyond this world. And the one thing, right. The one thing he said was that I would find my soulmate. So the possibility of true love is what kept me here. And I started.
Man, that resonates with me big time.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
And I started going to work on myself. And it took me 2 years to quit drinking after that, because I was really using the alcohol to process stuff. But I mean, I moved in by myself. I was very much in a codependent relationship prior to that, very needy. And then, it was like baby steps, like moving forward. I had used hypnosis to quit smoking out of some guy's living room, and then when I was ready to quit drinking, I went to the same guy, and in one hypnosis session I quit drinking, and that was at the age of 30.
Wow.
And then after just like spending all this time on the internet learning, reading self-help books, I got into community theater to overcome my fear of like public speaking or being in front of people. I went to nursing school. I got into competitive volleyball. Like, I put all this work in, like, consciously, right? And I had made some progress. I made progress, but I felt so far away of becoming the person that could attract the partner of my dreams, right? And then all of a sudden ayahuasca started popping up on my radar, and it started in a Howard Stern clip. It was Robin, his sidekick, was talking about it, and I heard her talk like great things about it. And then I think Chelsea Handler, who was on the E Network, she did like some retreat that was televised, and then it just kept popping up on my internet feeds. And then the one thing that really pulled me in was that someone described doing ayahuasca as doing 10 years of intense psychoanalysis in one night.
Yeah, absolutely. It's totally that way. I mean, that was my experience. And I just have to stop you for a minute, because I am like blown away by your story, because it's so much like mine. Thomas, I was the same way. I was raised, my family's Catholic, but growing up, they didn't convert to Catholicism until I was in college. So I kind of missed that boat, but we were always very much in church. My grandmother spoke in tongues, and like very, very religious upbringing where they put the fear in me. Like, if you ever talk to a psychic, like, you're going to open yourself up to a dynamic world, right? And it terrified me. And so I went through life thinking, oh my gosh, like, you can never talk to one of those. That's like the devil. You're going to open yourself up to like demons and things of that nature. And I got like you. I was so desperate for healing, and I spoke with a psychic, and everything changed for the better in my life from that moment. That's when I started attracting everything in my life, whether it was David, a healing, like you name it, success. And so, man, I love your story so far. I love it, love
Great.
it, love it.
I love that there's a parallel to yours too, and it's amazing. It was the one thing I needed, and I don't know how I attracted it. I don't know how it all came about, but it just, that's what kind of kept me here. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So before you go into ayahuasca, I just wanted to ask you, when it comes to psychedelics, what was your experience like? What psychedelics did you experience with, and did you find any benefits from taking psychedelics?
That's a great question, and it's funny. Being raised Catholic, and going through the DARE programs, like the fear of drugs just scared the crap out of me, you know. I know. In college, I smoked marijuana, but it wasn't really my drug of choice. It was always alcohol, and I was always too afraid to try anything else. So before my first ayahuasca ceremony, I had not experienced anything in the realm of psychedelics.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I can't even fathom that. Not that ayahuasca is like any psychedelic out there, because it's not.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I have a good friend who had done acid and all this stuff, and I told him that I was planning this trip to do this, and he said I was crazy. He goes, he's like, you should start off somewhere like smaller on the totem pole of psychedelics. And I was like, no, man, this is calling me. I'm doing it. So it's funny you say that.
Yeah, well, you've got to be called too.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting thing too. We've realized, it really does have to call you. Like, we felt called for a while, and with the shamans we experienced it with, that's one of their things. Was like, look, when they first started, they just were telling everyone to do it, but there was a lot of negatives that came out of that, because you really have to be called to it, which is hard to explain, but it if you're called to it. I guess, if that makes sense.
No, it's very true. And it's interesting, when I'm in ceremony, the occurring for me is that ayahuasca calls a lot of people that have experienced some real hard struggles or some traumas. That's kind of the majority of people that you see in those circles.
That's so interesting. You're right.
So tell me about your first ayahuasca experience.
Okay. All right. So for 2 years, I wanted to do a ceremony, and I wanted to go down to Peru, and I didn't want to go by myself, and I couldn't enroll anyone to go with me, and I was really frustrated. And eventually I was like, you know what, you could do just about anything in the States. So I searched online, and I found this place in Campbellsville, Kentucky, out of all places, in the Bible Belt. And
random.
And I called them. I spoke with the wife. It's a husband-wife duo, and she told me, and it gave me confidence, and I trusted her. So I spent a weekend. I took a flight. I went down there, and the interesting thing is, it was in a trailer park in the middle of nowhere in Campbellsville, Kentucky. And I pull up, and it's in this little like steel building. As soon as I walk in, it's like concrete floors. There's like black trash bags covering the walls, and there's like Christmas lights, and it's just like not a pleasant setting. And I was like,
oh no!
I was terrified. I was ready to walk out. I swear, I was just about to leave. I was like, this is a bad idea. And there was someone there. There was an older couple there that were really friendly, gave me a warm smile, and they were like, hey, where are you from? And I sat down, and they were just like, oh, these are normal people, and they're really nice and friendly. And just in the conversation, it calmed me down. And they were sharing about how they did DMT a week ago in Oklahoma, and I was like, okay, if these guys are here, then I'm gonna stick around. And then we're talking with Shaman Steve, right? Steve he spent, I think, 3.5 years in federal prison for bank robbing. And I'm like, he's telling me this, like, his history and his story, but at the same time, he sounds super wise and knowledgeable, and it's all about like growth and healing. And I don't know, it was a weird duality of like his past, the way he shared it, and who he was today was like completely different. And I grew to trust him too. And And then he was talking about the tea, poured a little cup into it. I had like a military cot that I was doing ceremony on, and then I did half a cup, and 20 minutes did another cup, and then boom, the journey started. And I didn't know how much to take or anything, and he came around asking if people wanted more, and I was like, okay, because my experience hadn't really kicked in. And I took like another dose, and it was just intense. Yeah, so that was kind of like, that was the beginning of it. And then the actual journey was so amazing. It was like beautiful lights and everything. And then all of a sudden, this is something I had never known or could have predicted. I hadn't done like too much research on it, but I had felt like this feminine energy spirit come into my body and like scan my body, and then healing started to happen, and like I could feel.
That's amazing.
And then my lungs started like convulsing. I had smoked for like 7 years, and like I always had worried about my lungs and my lung health, and it felt like I was getting a cleansing in my lungs. Like something was like punching me from the inside, and my lungs just cleaning it out.
Yeah.
And then the next thing was the most miraculous, because I had a neck injury from a weightlifting accident, and it had bothered me for years, and it was like I would be hunched over, especially after playing sports, and it just was very uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden, like something started like moving my head all the way to the left, all the way to the right, over and over again. And then I could feel like it healing the back of my neck, and after doing that for 10 minutes, it was completely healed. I never had a problem ever again since then.
I mean, I believe that 100%. That's amazing. That's amazing.
That is freaking awesome, man. I love hearing this. I mean, this is the kind of stuff people need to hear and know about, because it's so stigmatized. It drives me crazy. The whole psychedelic world is stigmatized because of fear of not understanding or knowing. So, man, not to go off on a tangent there, but I love hearing that. That is awesome. Now, question: did you go in with when you're in the healing that you've experienced? Did you go in with a specific intention for it? Because I know for us, we had to go with intention, but no expectation. Do you go with a specific intention, or did the healing come without the intention setting? It's just what you received.
Yeah, I had not known anything about setting intentions going into it. I was there for my psychological baggage. Like that was my intention for the most part. Is I just wanted to get past my baggage, my past. And I didn't even expect physical healing. Like afterwards, I was like, I got physical healing from this. And they're like, oh yeah, that can happen. And I was like, oh my God, this is like incredible. Like everybody should know about this, So yeah, I didn't have like a real specific intention, just psychological stuff.
That's awesome.
Now, how often do you do ayahuasca? Since you've done it 26 times, how often are you doing it?
I do it, it's been quite a while. I haven't done it since March of last year. I'm a leader in this organization, so I no longer can do it in the States because it's out of integrity, and it's a Schedule I drug, right? And it's illegal, right, except for a couple of churches, right, in the US. So I go down to Colombia now, and I do ceremony there. But I did do some ceremonies with the group from Colombia here, and it was a completely different experience than the Kentucky experience, right? There was shamans from Colombia. It was very ritualistic, it was so much different. Yeah. And their intention is all about healing. And the first ceremony I had with them blew my mind, because it actually explained why I ended up down this path of self-destruction. And it opened me up to a repressed memory of a trauma when I was like 4 years old. And I had no idea it was there, but it was the reason
And was that on the second ceremony that you received that you witnessed that? Was that the ceremony too?
I had done multiple ceremonies with the group in Kentucky, and then I ended up moving to Colorado, and then I met this group from Colombia in Colorado. So it was probably my 10th ceremony. Yeah, 10th night of ceremony. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that's why you chose Colombia, because you had met those people from there versus going to Costa Rica, Peru.
Exactly, yeah. So that's why I have the Colombian connection, yeah.
Wow. Where all have you done ayahuasca?
So I've done it in Kentucky. I've actually, the gentleman, I was able to get some, and I did it in the confines of my own place when I was in Massachusetts, which I don't recommend.
Okay.
Yeah, I would never do that.
I'm so curious about, not to interrupt your answer, but there were some members in our ceremony that were talking briefly on that, and one person was interested in trying it in his own house, but they're advised against it. Can you speak on that? What was that like? I feel like, just in my very little experience, it's such a specific sacred ceremony that's done a specific certain way.
Well, you have to have protection. Protection is so important, because it literally opens you up to anything.
Yes. Yeah, it really does. Well, the reason I don't recommend it is that, there's experiences where, your mind will take you wherever you go. So if you're dealing with fear in ceremony, watch out, right? and I had a lot of fears around death and the unknown and hell, all from my upbringing. So I've had some really intense ceremonies around that. And I remember one time I did it by myself, and that's where my mind took me, and it was literally the scariest journey you could ever go down. And I thought I was in hell. I really thought I was in hell. And then,
oh gosh, that's been my fear always of doing ayahuasca.
Yeah, when you have other people there guiding it, they can help support you. But if I had nobody to bring me back, so it was just like I had to wait it out for like 3 hours, and the only positive is afterwards. And maybe that was the intention of the journey, who knows, because there's always some benefit from it. I felt like a rebirth, like I was so grateful to be back, and it was just kind of like a rebirth experience. It was just like, that was really powerful.
Wow. Man, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I was so curious about that. And I was like, I never, I can tell I've always been an extremist all my life, but I have literally zero urge to ever try that, not in an actual sacred ceremony type of environment. Exactly.
Yeah.
I
was just going to say, I agree. And especially like the shamans from South America, like it's so, like it's their role in life. It's like they choose it, or it's like they're called to do it. And it's like oftentimes it's passed down from like grandfather to father to, and they've been doing it for like, who knows, 2,500 years, at a minimum. So there's an art to it, there's a science to it, and they really command the space. And that's like, once I experience that, it's like I'm never going to do it on my own. And I would probably not go back to that place in Kentucky to do it, because he doesn't have that experience either, like I've had some pretty scary journeys when I was there too.
So Megan and I have only partaken in 2 ceremonies, and like I said, we received so much healing on her side and guidance on mine. I'm sure there's so many in 26, but I guess the more major ones that have impacted you, what are some of the more major either lessons or knowledge or healing? You just mentioned the healing, but what are some of the bigger lessons or knowledge that you've gained overall your experience with ayahuasca?
Well, like I said, the smoking gun was when I did the first ceremony with the Colombian group, and it opened me up to a repressed memory, which explained my entire life. And then, but I had, the purging process is such a necessary process. And the thing is the first 25 ceremonies were very difficult, and then on the 26th one it shifted. Between the 25th and 26th it shifted. So most of it was about releasing and letting go of the stored emotions and pain from my past. That was most of it. So that's the clearing. And like the Colombian shamans, that's what they believe. They believe that you continue to do ceremony until you come back to who you were when you first came into this world, right? Without any of that pain and emotional baggage.
Wow.
But some of the lessons that I've learned that have been really profound was I've had a moment of like realizing that time doesn't exist. I've had moments where I was connected to everything. It was like an enlightening moment. It was like enlightenment for like a couple minutes. Many ceremonies around me being the one, in which teaching me that I am the creator of my destiny. I am made in the image of God. I am that powerful. And in one ceremony, I got connected to divinity. I could feel it like running through my body, like, and it's one of those experiences you can't put in words, right? And
yeah.
So those were some, but yeah, like some of the
How
go for it.
How many ceremonies did you feel like that it took to get to the like those deep moments?
Probably around 20. Yeah.
Wow.
And just to recap, so you said, because this statement is just so mind-blowing for me, I think it's so important. You said the purging was so essential, and it was 25 ceremonies before you feel you purged all that you went through completely out. And you said the Colombian shamans, they believe that each ceremony gets you closer and closer to who you were when you came into the world. And that's what ayahuasca does. It purges all that stuff you repress, all that stuff that you hold in, to make you your true self at the very end of it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's beautiful. It really is.
Wow, that's amazing. Totally agree.
And the 25, you purged it all out. You like felt like you were back to the true you without any resentment, without that any of that suppressed stuff. And how is the 26th different?
It was more kind of teaching me about how everything works. It was like kind of like the inner workings of like what we're doing here, what's the design of all of it, and kind of giving me images of the future, you know, and just showing me and guiding me on my path of what I should be doing, you know, in this world. So it's like connecting me more to my purpose, you know.
That's awesome.
That's incredible.
That's really cool. Yeah, so changing gears just a little, I was looking over your email, some of your info, and Megan and I, we've never really heard of Cambo before. Can you tell us what that's all about? I mean, I saw it was frog venom, and I know our second night it was a combination of the ayahuasca, the chacruna, and 5-MeO-DMT, which is that frog venom, insanely powerful psychedelic.
Yeah, that's definitely what took me to where I needed to go.
Yeah, that took Megan straight to the cosmos to have her heal the majority of her repressed trauma. So anyway, is Cambo, is that similar to that, or can you tell us a little bit about that, and if you could tell us what that experience is like differently?
So I've actually not experienced it. So it's going to be it's part of my it's the last night of ceremony in Colombia, and Cambo is a frog venom also, and the idea is you kind of like burn these little holes onto your skin, like just like a layer, so that the frog venom can get absorbed into the body. And it depends on how many holes, like depending on the size of the person, what they can take, but it's like 3 to 5. And the idea is it's a purging, and it's a detox. So it kind of inflames your body, and then you purge a lot, you throw up a lot. It lasts a couple hours, but it helps with eliminating toxins in the body. And if you have parasites in your stomach, it helps eliminate parasites. Often people who use Cambo, it kind of kicks sugar addictions. So it really is just like a detoxifying process.
Very cool. So I skipped over one question, so I'm going to go back just for a second to the ayahuasca. So do you feel every time you went, you just got a little bit more of that repression out, a little bit more out, and you felt more healed every single ceremony you went to? You came out a little more healed than you were before?
Yeah, definitely. I always felt like a transformation happened, right? Like I was a new person. So yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So switching gears for a second, I definitely checked out your website, themindguy.com, which is a super cool, catchy name. How did you transition your career into doing something like that full time? Is the first question. The part two to that would be, what is it that you feel sets you apart from, there's this big mindfulness movement right now, and people saying that coaches and all that. What is it that sets you apart? What is it that helped you transition to doing your work full time? How did you do that? And what is it that sets you apart in your coaching practice?
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks. So when I ended up leaving Massachusetts, I did this road trip across the country. I bought like a 12-passenger van. I rescued a dog, and I thought I was going to end up in LA, and it didn't work out for me. LA was just a little bit too much for me. So when I was on the Pacific Coast Highway, I had an idea to see a hypnotist in Seattle for my social anxiety. Now, I had used hypnosis out of some guy's living room to quit smoking and drinking. I was like, I wonder what else it could help me with. So I had this really powerful experience in Seattle, and then I ended up in Albuquerque, New Mexico on the road trip to learn it. And what I learned there was like, every single human being should know this, in which like we have a conscious mind, we have a subconscious mind. 90% of what we do is based off of subconscious programming. So that started it. And then I do this work with this organization that does seminars. It's called Landmark, and they tap into the subconscious mind as well, and open you up to things hidden from you in the blind spots. And then the way that I see what ayahuasca does is it opens you up to your subconscious mind as well, into kind of your higher self. And the way I really explain ayahuasca to people is like, we have a higher intelligence, and it creates dreams for us, right? So we often forget the dreams, but the dreams are there to teach us stuff. It's like trying to guide us, while we sleep. Ayahuasca is like being in the dream. Like, it's like you're in the dream when you're doing ayahuasca, right? And it's connected to that higher intelligence, that higher self, and it's teaching you, and it's having you grow. So everything I do is towards the subconscious mind. So I do very little of like affirmations or conscious teaching. Like, I find directly where the limiting programs and beliefs are, and I rewrite them, and they're very quick and easy, and everything shifts. It clears so much stuff for people. So that's kind of me, is I'm all about the subconscious.
Very cool. I love that. Yeah, subconscious mind is definitely where it's at. So I have it's interesting, your story, it resonates with me too, because I have a personal past dealing with addiction as well, specifically in regards to alcohol. And it was binge drinking for me. That was really my big thing. It was binge drinking, and tried all of society's ways to overcome it, and literally nothing worked. Everything I tried the society was telling me to do made me want to go drink more, actually. Yeah. But I'm not downing it. I mean, it definitely works for some people, and if it works for them, that's fantastic. So it's just, everyone has their own way, I guess, sometimes. For me, it was definitely a combination of specific psychedelic usage, subconscious reprogramming, as well as just having things that are more important to me than that, like, my wife, or that relationship with God. And I think you might have answered this question earlier, but what was it that specifically helped you overcome your addiction, would you say?
What specifically overcame my addiction? It really was like a mindset trick. The possibility of true love, right? When I met the psychic, it was like, listen, I cannot continue doing this. And it took me a couple of years to trick my mind I said, if I don't do it by the age of 30, then it's going to be so much harder every year after that. So I mentally prepared myself. And that's kind of the interesting thing, is that our reality is created very much from our beliefs. So I developed a belief that I couldn't make it past the age of 30. And I waited all the way till the end of my 30th year. And then I used the help of hypnosis to help me quit. Now, it didn't mean my life got much better. I had a whole new set of issues because I had used it as a crutch in social situations, and I I'm diagnosed with a personality disorder called avoidant personality disorder. So being around people was always extremely challenging for me. So when I got rid of the crutch, my life actually had a whole new set of challenges. So I was still so disconnected from everyone. I mean, even though I was sober, I was still living a very isolated life. And now, and then when the ayahuasca came and then the other things with the subconscious mind, I went into hyperspeed with my growth, and healing was the access for me really coming over all the pain. And the addiction is just something that helps you deal with the pain,
Yeah,
absolutely. So while we're talking about beliefs, what is your belief on God? I know you grew up Catholic, but like now today, after all these experiences, what is your belief around God?
My belief around God. So it's difficult for me to actually use that word, being raised Catholic, right? Because it has the connotation that there's something out there watching you and like
judging you.
Judging you. It's a good way to put it. And I'm really more in the spiritual alignment and practice of creator or source. I believe that there is, I think it's like a oneness idea, is that we're all made of the image of God, like God runs through all of us, and God was just this, this ball of light that had nothing to do, and it decided, it wanted to experience itself. So like each of us are made in the image of God, which is light and love. So, he created this game, or I don't want to say it created this game where it would have us forget when we come into this world, and then it's like a rediscovery of realizing that we actually are God, or we are creators, so that's kind of how I see the whole God thing playing out, is that we are God. We all are, each and every one of us. We are the ones, we are the creators, and it's a process of unraveling the conditioning of the mind and remembering who we truly are. So that's kind of the game or the school that we're in.
That's awesome. I love that. That's really, really cool. Thanks you articulated that very well.
Thanks.
If you could name one thing that you think could change about society, that would benefit society the most, what would that be?
I think the number one thing, it'd probably be what my mission is to teach everybody, especially kids at a very young age, is that they make up stuff, or more so teach them how their minds work, but that the things that we tell ourselves in emotional moments end up becoming programs that dictate the rest of our lives. So like schools are breeding grounds for limiting programs and beliefs. Like public speaking is like the number one fear, like speaking in public, which is like no threat or danger whatsoever, but we create this belief in these programs based on the pain and the embarrassment of saying something wrong, or seeing someone else say something wrong in front of a group. And if kids knew that the things that they made up are actually lies, that would empower kids from a very young age, and then it would completely shift society.
It's awesome.
Now, do you feel called to go down like the shamanism path, like to facilitate ayahuasca ceremonies yourself? Is that something that you feel is calling to you?
Actually, no. My vision, my dream is creating this healing Mecca in the States, and it's going to be near the mountains, and I want to attract all healing modalities and create like a spiritual healing university to kind of research, develop, and have people come for 3 months, 6 months, a year, to have massive transformation and growth and healing. And it includes psychedelics, all kinds of psychedelics. So that is my big dream, is to create and enroll and attract some of the best healers in the world. And
well, that's amazing. I want to go to that.
Right?
That's amazing.
Yeah, you're welcome. Come on down.
A trip to Colombia doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah.
To the States.
Oh, the States. Oh no. Yeah. So if you had one message to leave with the world, what would that be?
Wow, I was not expecting that.
Put you on the spot.
None of this is real.
Oh, wow.
That's deep.
None of it's real.
That's awesome. Think of the immediate release of pressure, an immediate release of like, enjoy the moment and enjoy yourself. I love that. There's so many thought patterns that come with that are just beautiful.
Yeah, totally.
Well, man, it's been awesome talking to you. It's just, we're so in alignment, Megan and I's path and yours. I know we just met, but it'd be so cool to see where our paths go and see if they align sometime in the future, because we're right there with you, man. That's so cool. I guess the last thing I'd love to give you a chance just to talk about your upcoming Colombia ayahuasca trip, kind of where they can probably get information about it and how to contact you.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that. So it's going to be happening March 8th to the 14th, and it's outside of Medellin. It's a really beautiful place on the side of a mountain. Danielle, who hosts it, she's from the States. She lives in Colombia now. She's had this amazing journey where she's, brought ceremony to the States, and it's one of the best places ever you can do ceremony. It's by a river. It's in the jungle where the medicine comes from. Has the plant energy, the water energy. It's the Maloka, which is the outdoor structure where ceremony takes place, is up against this giant rock. So there's rock energy. And that's where I've had the most profound experiences of divinity and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a beautiful place too. So there's going to be 3 nights of ceremony. There's going to be a sweat lodge the first night, and then the last night is going to be a Cambo ceremony. And it's going to be amazing. I'm going to also include some talking circles, some other spiritual talks, even a entrepreneur mastermind for the people that are coming that are entrepreneurs. So that's kind of the idea. And if anybody wants to get more information, they can go to my website. So it's not themindguy.com, it's actually themindguy.net, and I'm in Colorado. So if anybody wants to Google search The Mind Guy in Colorado, then I should come up, and you could just email me on the website and I can just give you more information. So thank you for letting me share that too.
Yeah,
awesome. One last question I had for you. Do you feel that it does make a difference partaking in ceremony where the medicine is grown, like in the jungle?
I would say yes, and mainly because the shamans say that. There's something gets taken away when the medicine travels and it's no longer in its home. And I can tell you the ceremonies that I've done in Colombia have been much more profound. I've actually purged a lot more and gotten over a lot more stuff. So I would say yes. Now, it's going to be beneficial anywhere you do it, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
If you have a calling, like I have a friend, and I met him through the Colombia group, but he went to the Kentucky person, and ultimately, even though we don't recommend the guy in Kentucky, we recommend either going down to South America or getting connected with South American shamans. But he opened the door for us, right? So that was our access point, and it grew into something a lot bigger. And I know there's a lot of circles that are out there, and it's a good starting point, right? And I ask people to continue on the journey because you get more connected to the medicine, and there's a spirit behind the medicine. It's Mother Aya, and the more you do ceremony, the more you get connected to that, and the more profound the ceremonies are. So I encourage people to not just do it once or twice, but to do it many times, because it grows and it gets better.
Awesome. Yeah, we're doing it again in April. I'm quite nervous, but I'm doing it. So.
Yeah, Megan had all the trauma she's repressed and was causing so much stuff. She had I would say 70-80% of that purged.
I mean, you say you purge more in the jungle. I honest to God can't imagine purging more than I did.
Well, I mean,
she was the star of the show.
Yeah, I definitely was the show star, unfortunately. Or I guess fortunately, I don't know.
Just so you know, I mean, that's just a testament to how tough you are, because the medicine will only purge as much or let go as much as your mind is capable of. So, I mean, for me, that's probably why it's taken 25 ceremonies, is because it's been a gradual process. And for you to be able to let go that much in one ceremony just is a testament to the badass that you are.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You are awesome. I tell her that all the time, and she constantly impresses me with her strength and courage. But I really appreciate it coming. You saying that yourself. So thanks a lot, man. Well, awesome. Yeah, that's it. It was so cool talking to you. Thanks for connecting with us, Thomas. Let's totally stay in touch. And man, if anyone out there is considering doing this, if you feel it's calling to you, hit up Thomas. You heard how to contact him. If you missed it, hit me up. I will happily connect you with him. Thanks again, Thomas, for being on. And everyone out there, happy healing.
Happy healing.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Yeah, you too.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.